21 years ago, Ellen and I were dating long distance. I had been introduced to her by her sister PJ, who is a very good friend of mine. At the time, I was living just outside of Kansas City, Missouri, and Ellen was living in Amarillo, Texas. Well, we were in love with each other, but like most couples who start out with a lot of miles between them, we had lots of questions. How could we eventually live in the same place? We both had children from our first marriages. How would it work to blend two families into one household? Now, if we were serious, and we knew that we needed more than just late-night phone calls and quick visits now and then. We needed to see how our kids connected with each other. We needed to create some shared experiences and start weaving all of those threads into something resembling a family. So I came up with what seemed like a brilliant idea. Let's all go to Disneyland, the self-proclaimed happiest place on earth. What could go wrong? But to this day, I'm not sure why Ellen agreed to that, but she did. Her daughter Natalie was 14 years old then, and she only agreed to go on this trip if she could also stop at Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. Natalie was passionate about fashion, so much so after she later studied fashion merchandising in college, and she worked in that industry in New York City for several years. So, at that time, Rodeo Drive was, in her mind, heaven on earth. From the very beginning, though, for this trip, things really went sideways. My boys and I, we missed our flight to L.A. We arrived several hours late. Strike one. Our rental car turned out to be tiny and embarrassing, not the sleek vehicle Natalie imagined for her glamorous trip through Beverly Hills. Strike two. By the time we got to Rodeo Drive finally, all the stores were closing, and my boys shrugged. It didn't matter to them, but for Natalie, it was devastating. She had a meltdown of massive proportions that only a teenager could pull off. So trying to salvage the evening, we drove over to Santa Monica Beach to watch the sunset. But the meltdown continued. She called her dad in Texas and begged him to come to L.A. to pick her up. So at this point, things were not going really well. Natalie hated the situation and she hated me. And my kids wondered what in the world they had gotten into. And Ellen and I looked at each other with a mix of panic and despair. This was supposed to be our big family bonding adventure, and it was already just unraveling. But the next day was Disneyland, and we pinned our hopes on that. But even there, the dynamic was kind of rough. For Natalie, being 14 years old and stuck in a theme park with her mom and three guys from Missouri wasn't exactly her dream scenario. But that evening, something changed. We'd gone on all the rides, eaten way too much, and we were just worn out. But as we walked toward the big castle, Cinderella's castle at the center of the park, crowds gathered for the fireworks as the park closed. And suddenly, the loudspeakers throughout the park began blasting this classic rock and roll song that I knew very well by the band Cheap Trick called I Want You to Want Me. And at that moment, I thought, I have nothing to lose here. Natalie already thinks I am ridiculous. So I grabbed her hand and started singing along with that music, skipping like a big doofus and pulling her alongside me. I want you to want me. I need you to need me. I'd love you to love me. Just like that. It was goofy, embarrassing, but something amazing happened. Natalie laughed, and she started singing along with me. So we skipped through the park and shouted the lyrics right into each other's faces. And for those few minutes, we were completely ridiculous together. And that broke down a wall. By the time we reached that castle, with Ellen and my boys struggling to keep up with us, Natalie, who is, if you've met her, you know she's small. She's a little person, 4'1". She said, "Put me on your shoulders so I can see what's going on." That was a turning point. Ever since, I have looked back on that moment as one of my personal mountaintop experiences. Something new and wonderful happened. A wall came down. Trust and joy began to grow. And that night, our two families started the process of becoming one. And today, 21 years later, I call Natalie my daughter, and I'm proud that she introduces me as her father. Mountaintop experiences are like that. They are defining moments. They may not last long, but they leave an impact that shapes our lives for years to come. Sometimes, those moments come just right out of the blue. A chance encounter with the person you'll eventually marry. A teacher who sees a gift in you that you didn't even know you possessed. Or the realization that, you can no longer stay in this job. Sometimes they happen, though, because we prepare ourselves. We set the stage. We make space. And when the moment arrives, we're open enough to be transformed. Now, this morning, we heard the story of Moses on Mount Sinai, perhaps the ultimate mountaintop experience. Moses climbs the mountain, steps into a mysterious cloud, and enters God's presence. Now, what he experiences there not only transforms him personally, it shaped communities for thousands of years. This story, passed down through generations, it wasn't simply about one individual's mystical encounter. For ancient Israel, it was about identity. At Sinai, the people received not just stone tablets of God's laws, but a framework for building a life together. How to treat each other, how to honor God, how to live in justice and peace. And for those who first told and then retold this story, it explained why their covenant really mattered and why and how they could keep moving forward even through a very harsh wilderness for years. One hallmark of a mountaintop moment is elevation. These moments lift us up. They break us out of the ordinary. Now, some of this can be private, opening a love letter, hearing your child laugh uncontrollably, or realizing that joy comes from serving others. Years ago, when I was a youth minister, our group helped repair the home of an elderly woman who was living in abject poverty. Her house was in horrible shape, barely livable. But by the end of the day, she had a working toilet, hot water, a front door that locked, and a cleaned out, cleared yard. And as we left, she hugged every single teenager. Many of them cried. One of those young men, told me he had never felt so wonderful. Now, of course, the point of it was not to make ourselves feel good, but to help another human being. Still, the truth was clear. Doing good for others does feel good because that is how we are wired. Other mountaintop moments are more public than that. Graduations or retirements or weddings. Now, at weddings, I've noticed that the fathers of the bride often cry the most. Once, a friend told me through his tears, I just wasn't prepared for this to be so awesome. And I know exactly what he meant. When remember Natalie? When she married years later, I stood there to officiate. And I lost it myself. That was another mountaintop. Now, another hallmark of defining moments is insight. They rewire our understanding of how the world works. In a single instant, something clicks. This is my new path. This is my calling now. This is the person I will love forever. A veterinarian friend once told me of her defining moment, and it came to her when she was a teenager. She was working on a ranch. She was cleaning stables and feeding horses when she realized the animals responded to her with trust and affection. It was as if they wanted her to take care of them. In that moment, she knew she would devote her whole life to large animal veterinary medicine. Defining moments also live in courage, because mountaintop experiences often start with taking a risk. They can require hard work and persistence. Many years ago, I went on a bicycle tour of Montana, 50 miles cycling every day, up and over the Continental Divide. One rider I got to know, his name was Dan, was 75 years old. He had undergone quadruple bypass surgery just the year before. His doctor had doubts about this trip, but Dan trained carefully, building his stamina. He was just determined. And every time on that ride, I started feeling exhausted and sorry for myself and questioning my life choices for doing that, wondering if I could make it to the next stop on our journey. Dan would speed right past me, smiling. That ride was his dream. It took courage, but he said the sense of achievement was worth every single mile. And mountaintop experiences are also social. Even when they feel personal, their impact ripples outward. When we are changed, the people around us are touched too. Think of the teachers who have changed your life, the mentors who believed in you, the friend who said just the right words at just the right moment. Their defining moments spilled over into your life. And your defining moments spill over into someone else's too. None of us lives in isolation. So just try this. This is an easy exercise. The next time you're in an exchange with someone, especially someone who's providing you a service of some kind, at a coffee shop, the person taking your order, holding the door for you, look them in the eye and call them by their name. And if you do not know their name, ask and tell them, I appreciate you. I appreciate your help. Tell them, I am thankful for you and your work. That simple acknowledgement can change their whole day. And if a few words can make that kind of a difference, imagine how your own defining moments ripple out into the world. All of those qualities, elevation, insight, courage, impact, they're all there in the story of Moses. His encounter on Mount Sinai shaped not only him, but entire generations. We are here today because of that foundational moment. We are children of the children of Israel. We've inherited that story. And just as God invited Moses to climb, we're invited to climb too. Invited to rise up, to create space for transformative moments, to step into experiences that give us new vision, new courage, and new purpose. We are invited to join our hands and our hearts and our voices in moments that demand our response, moments that stretch our comfort zones, moments that draw us out of ourselves and out of our self-interest to speak words of protest sometimes, to feed those who are hungry all the time, to stand with those who are vulnerable, to say no more to injustice. And mountaintop experiences, well, they don't have to be all that dramatic all the time. They can be as simple as an honest conversation. They can be as everyday as noticing the incredible beauty around us. It can be as ordinary as telling someone thank you. But the effect can be extraordinary. When we climb, when we risk, when we open ourselves to the possibility of being changed, well, something new and wonderful is bound to happen. Not just for us, but for everyone our lives are blessed to touch. Amen.